Things to consider when mediating 50-50 custody, Part 2, series Mediation Tips by Fran Brochstein. This is our topic for today.
Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by instantmediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent.
Hello and welcome again in today's topic, which is about shared custody again, 50-50 custody. We already did part 1, but there is still so much to share about it. This is why we are here to discuss things to consider when mediating 50-50 custody. And I wanted to start by saying that whenever there is an institution that is not governed by the law, that is not precisely described by the law, that gives you so much in family law of creativity and space in mediation to cover what you want to do. However, all that you agree in mediation usually will go to the court, which will be overlooking what you agreed upon. This is why I wanted to us to present from our mediators and sometimes also lawyers' perspective, what conditions need to be met so that the shared custody, joint custody, 50-50 custody can be successfully adjudicated and successfully exercised. Fran, what do you think?
Well, since I did this and I now co-grandparent with my ex-husband, learning to be flexible is vital. As I've said to people, you can have the most beautiful divorce decree or custody arrangement that would make any judge cry tears of joy. And it's never going to address all the possibilities that occur in life. For example, after my divorce, I got pneumonia and had to go to the hospital. And I had to call her dad and say, hey, I'm in the hospital. I'm really, really sick. Can you pick up the kiddo from school and keep her? And I don't know when I'm going to get out of the hospital. So co-parenting, it's essential that you both be flexible and think outside the box. What do you think, Mac?
Yeah, so on this issue of people being agreeable and being flexible and willing to work with each other, this is a big point. Sometimes, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes the best co-parents are the people who don't follow the court order, meaning they work so well together, they don't need to have this constitution written down that spells out exactly every single line and every single issue. Okay. And sometimes the worst co-parents are the ones who live by every single line of that judgment or that decree, and they fight over every single point because things become an issue of contention. And so this paradox happens sometimes. Now, most of the time it doesn't happen, but it just goes to show that parents need to try to, as we say, put kids first and spend a little less time, fighting amongst themselves. And sometimes a parent who comes to me and says something like, it's not me, it's them. The it's them thing always comes up a whole lot of times. Uh, the only thing I would say to that is usually it is them, but also make sure that you're not contributing. Okay, because usually each parent knows the button they can push to cause or to propel the other side to react a certain way. And the other side might never say something to a stranger down the street or to a judge, certainly, or to their own lawyer, but they'll say it to you because, again, they know the buttons to push. And so you sometimes got to find ways to make peace so that you can promote the common good for your child. So yes, I completely agree. That's the first big precondition, the first big step when it comes to wanting to have a successful agreement where parents share their child 50-50.
And now I would want to add to that we only follow psychological assessment in terms of that already set up certain rules. Again, they are not written in the law. People who deal with family law, they usually know them by practice. You learn that step by step. But practically, if we are to set up a test, if the parents will be suitable for this 50-50 cooperation, and the mediation is a perfect place to have this test being set up, but also being then followed to do the reality check, if you are able to do that. Those would be the crucial points you need to consider. First of all, live in the neighborhood. I'm not saying you need to live within the same homeowners association. That can be a few blocks away. However, still, the kid is able to see after school the same kids. I remember a very sad story that my client brought me that was, my child was staying in the playground, and I heard him say to a little boy, I would love you to be my friend, but you can't, because I don't know when I'm going to be here again, because now I'm going to live with my dad and it's in another part of the city. And that's actually heartbreaking, because this is us as parents who put the kids into such circumstances that are unbearable for them, that make it difficult for the kids. So first, living close. Second, this absolute perfect communication. The communication that enables you to pick the phone anytime and say, listen, I forgot this and that. Do you have these shoes? Do you have this thing that is necessary for this physical exercise or for this artwork that the kid is to prepare? And also the kids being aware that if they are about to lie to their parents, the parent will just grab the phone and say, listen, he's saying that you told him that he's allowed not to brush his teeth at night, before he goes to bed. Is that really true? And when the kid sees that the parents are able just even to do this reality check upon them, they're able to, that will extinguish from the very beginning this temptation that is in the kids to manipulate parents. Because if they are able to communicate, they will see how it goes. And one more thing that we also consider quite important, and I usually put that into the mediation agreements, some basic rules as regards to the, let us say, home order for children. I'm not saying that we are to be following certain rules, but usually there should be certain rules. These rules might embrace, and this is the phenomenon of today's times, that is use of the electronic devices. It can be that they can spend on the mobile phone and playing hours and hours in one home, and the other parent is very restrictive about it. This is about, I'm sorry to say, junk food. People quarrel about it the entire time, what they give to the kids. Then about administering medication, that we are able to communicate and give ourselves effectively information about how we are doing in terms of this antibiotic or something. I've heard parents being so irresponsible in terms of that, just forgetting or not sharing that the kid is under antibiotics. Having said that, I want us now to concentrate on the thing that is almost always something that is very divisive in terms of people wanting to have 50-50 custody, and how do we mediate and agree upon child support if we have 50-50 custody. What sort of creative arrangements have you applied, Fran? Have you applied, Mac, later on?
I've done all kinds of things. For example, one man was willing to pay 100% of all uninsured medical, and he would pay all extracurricular, because extracurriculars can run quite a bit of money, especially if they are involved in these teams like baseball in Texas that travel around. That is not inexpensive. That can actually far exceed what child support would be ordered in Texas. So, again, I encourage people to be creative and flexible, because none of us can anticipate all of our children's needs. I did do a case at a mediation where I had a child that was trying out for the Olympics in gymnastics, and every penny the family made went to that. And getting ready for the Olympics is extremely, extremely expensive. So, Mac, what have you seen?
Sorry about that, a little technical difficulty. So most of the time, whenever we're dealing with 50-50, where the parents share the child equally, when it comes to money, well, in theory, there shouldn't be any money from one parent to another, right? It's supposed to be in many parents' minds that, hey, listen, the father has a child equally like the mother. The father's own costs are going to come from his own household. He'll take care of the child's daycare, after school care, extracurricular activities, whatever, on his own dime. And when the child's with mom, same thing. Now, it's not that simple because obviously you're going to have to share certain costs, especially when it gets to medical, okay, or the things that affect the child no matter where they are and whatever home they are, or things that happen during the summer months. The child's not at school, but the child's going to be with a parent possibly more of the time because the other parent works or they have a weird schedule that doesn't let them be with the child a whole lot. So, so generally speaking, I've done these kind of orders where the parents do, let's say, week on, week off, and nobody pays child support. And we just specifically say it, okay, that neither parent should have the obligation to pay, a duty to pay, and neither parent has the exclusive right to receive. The dangers with that, obviously, is whenever a bill comes up that has not been thought about in the beginning, one parent gets stuck holding the bag. And the way to address that is to, like you just said, Fran, give specific examples of, okay, how are we going to take care of these bills when they arrive? And that can be a pretty easy thing. You just got to talk about it and decide. The extracurricular activities one is a big one because we either know if it's kids in football or not, right? But sometimes you don't know because the child is not in the sport yet. And so we would have to carve a section for that if in the event or if a child is going to be going to register for a certain thing like soccer, who's going to pay for that? So that's typically when we might address those kind of costs. But I think most of the time we don't even put child support at all. One more thing: if a parent makes a whole lot more money than another parent, then we would need sometimes out of equity and fairness to put child support, even though the parents have the child equally. So the typical way I handle that is if parent X makes something like, I don't know, child support of 5 grand a month, and parent Y makes something like income of 4 grand a month, what would child support be under both scenarios? And then you take the difference. And the difference is what the parent who makes more pays to the other parent. So if child support from dad to mom would have been 700 a month, and child support from mom to dad would have been 500 a month, the difference is 200. So dad will pay mom 200. Very, very simple, very clean, and it gives him a big credit, but it also gives mom something so that we've accounted for the disparity in income because sometimes that's a big factor, even though parents share the child equally.
And I wanted to say that we experienced by practice, we created certain systems that people try to follow. First system is that parents have a spreadsheet where they put all the expenditures they encumbered for the kids within a particular month. At the end of the month, they see what's in there, and the one who spent more demands the equal share of the parent who spent less. The second system is setting a common bank account. Both parents have the same bank account, pay the same amount of money into this account, and they both have debit cards or credit cards to this bank account, and you can see how the money was spent. The third system is that the parents specifically say who is paying which sort of expenditures. And usually the most important factor is private education. So, for example, you might be having parents with an equal arrangements of time spent with the kids. And one specifically says that, and the ruling of the court will be each parent covers the expenditures connected with the kid living with them. And on top, the dad is paying for private education and private medical care, whereas mom is paying for something, again, specific. And I've seen all of that. I've also seen men who really saw that they needed to pay something to the other parent and they didn't want to pay it alimony. So we've been calling it equivalent for equal standard of living transferred from mom to dad so that the kids stay within the same conditions, things like that. Mediation is a fantastic place where we can hide child support under any name we want, as long as the parties agree to that. And the last topic I wanted us to cover today would be, what do you think? What do you need to pay special attention to when it comes to shared custody 50-50? What obstacles can come in the way? What we need to pay attention to when we draft the agreement and then when we perform the shared custody? Fran?
Well, I always laugh when I'm doing parents that have a 1 or 2 or 3-year-old, and I start bringing up extracurricular and what are you going to do when the child wants a car at 16 or something like that. Again, I'm a huge advocate for mediation because it can be so creative and it it can be so empowering to the parents and the children. So that's one reason I shifted from litigation to mediation, was that I find mediation to be, for me, so much more personally fulfilling. And I truly feel like I help families so much more than I did as an attorney. Mac, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So in terms of obstacles, I think it's kind of obvious, guys, what the biggest problem tends to be, which is getting the other parent to agree to a 50-50 custody arrangement. I mean, how many times do I have this come up at mediation and the other parent says absolutely not? In their position usually is, well, look, I know the judge is not going to do this, okay? Because in my jurisdiction, it doesn't typically happen. The only way there's going to be a 50-50 arrangement is if the parents agree to it. And so the first obstacle is, can you even get this done? Okay. Now, there are many reasons why you may be able to. And we've all proven that it can be done because we've done it. Okay. Either as an attorney for a party or um, as a mediator, bringing people together. And so I would say that's the most obvious obstacle is whether or not it's going to be able to even be done. And if it can be done, is it going to be workable? Are these parties going to like this? And so when we think of distance, distance might kill an agreement because how is 50-50 going to work if one parent lives so far from the child's school? The child is going to be spending an hour in a car. Okay. So distance is big. You gotta live close together if you're gonna make this happen. Another thing is, you know, whenever parents agree to the concept of 50-50, they then realize that they've just opened up a can of worms that where they have to then debate additional things. Okay, now that it's 50-50, how do we deal with the holidays fairly? How do we deal with the claiming of the taxes fairly? How do we deal with when one parent wants to move? Because that's going to impact the schedule. And how do we deal with extraordinary things that we never thought about that might come up, like a new step parent comes into the picture, and that person is going to want to have a say and want to have influence over what happens. And so when you agree that you want to do a 50-50 custody arrangement, please think through everything, because there's a whole nother bunch of, the balls of wax that comes along with this that needs to be dealt with as well. So go to a good mediator and who can help you think and process through all of the other issues that will come along.
Well, and Mac, let me add very quickly that another option, and I encourage people, is to try 50-50 for 6 or 9 months and do a temporary order and then see if it's working for you and the kids. And many times I've had people come back after doing it for 6 months and we tweak it because they begin to see what it's really like to live it. It's one thing to think about it and to ponder what it's going to be in the future. It's another thing to actually live it day to day. So that's my 2 cents on that today.
Good point.
And I wanted to add a little tip for those who want to do shared custody 50-50 week by week. And people usually think about the day to start, and some of them start Mondays. But actually, the practice of my clients proved the point that it is better to start on Fridays. Why? You start with the weekend, this enthusiasm of being together. Then Monday, you are already tired, but then you need to go through the week. And then when you are absolutely exhausted, you get rid of the kids and have your weekend to rest. And when you do it the other way around, you start with the chores, with everything that's so difficult. Then when you get to the weekend, you're already tired and exhausted, and you are left with children who are also exhausted after their entire week. So this is really something to consider. And one more thing, I also had something like people had 2 children. They were relatively small. The custody was performed week by week. And they invented a little door so that the kids can have each parent for themselves on Wednesdays. They alternated, meaning on Wednesday, the one kid was with one parent, the other kid was with the other parent, irrespective of with whom of the parents the kids were staying. That was and of course, that meant that one Wednesday the kid was with one parent, the other, but that was the very day during the week when each parent had just one kid. They could concentrate on this kid, what this kid likes doing, like cooking, going to the movie for a specific film. That's also might be some interesting thing, especially if the kids are really within the huge age gap, and something different will be interesting for a little girl than to a boy of 12 or 14 years. And having said that, I think we should be closing by now. And I think that everybody who is listening or viewing can see how fascinating and how many different practicalities this 50-50 custody can bring. Go and mediate. See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.